What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Cardinal Rule, our live stream, the Arizona Cardinals group therapy session. And we are not licensed mental health professionals, so we say that for entertainment purposes only. Though my wife is a counselor, so at least I know someone who can maybe help me process what we're going through. But I am delighted to be joined by a couple of my favorite folks to talk Arizona Cardinals with. So without further ado, I'm going to bring into the stream Aaron Van Buren and Kyler Bird, and we're hoping Walter Mitchell can join us soon. He may be running a little bit behind, but we're going to start with the three of us. How are you guys doing?
I mean, 2021 is almost over. I mean, but it's been, just more of the same, and it just kind of feels like that one meme, like, this is fine, and it's fire in background. So, just always, you got to try to keep a positive standpoint, no matter how many embarrassing losses that go on. So, I mean, everything's still within our grasp with a little bit of help, so it's not all lost.
Awesome. I'm going to bring the one, the only Walter Mitchell. Thanks for making it, joining us, Walter. Glad you could be here.
Hey, Professor. Hey, guys.
Hey.
I got my Kyler shirt on, man. I'm ready to go.
Nice.
Hey, Kyler. Hey, Aaron.
How you doing, man? Good to meet
you. Aaron was just telling us how he's doing. How are you doing, Walter?
Well, I'm mourning the loss of John Madden. Been spending a lot of today writing about him, and so that's heavy on my mind. Have you guys seen the documentary that Fox did on him?
Not yet. I've seen them promoting it. Yeah,
I guess they're showing it again tomorrow night on Fox. So it's awesome, and I'm so happy for his sake that he was able to see this before he passed. And it's just stunning how they handle it. And so yeah, but go ahead, Aaron. You were saying about the Cardinals. What were you? Let me jump in here. Let me hear what you were. Finish what you were saying.
I had just got done saying that it feels like, that one meme where the dog's in the coffee shop and everything's on fire, and he said, "This is fine." So no matter how bad the losses are, there's still, our destiny is still kind of within our hands with some help. So that's pretty much it.
100%. Yeah. So Kyler, how are you doing?
Well, I get upset every time that we lose, and then you pull back, and everything still feels like this team is perfectly capable of winning. So every Sunday or whatever game day is, it's a surprise each and every time that, oh man, they're doing bad again, which, I mean, that in of itself should be maybe an optimistic take, because there are plenty of years for the Cardinals where a bad performance on game day was not a surprise at all. It became the expectation. So the fact that I'm still surprised when something looks off with the team, like all those pieces are still there, and I know that any given week they can bounce back to it. I still feel optimistic overall about what the team is, and I'm glad that we made the playoffs, but I do hate the way that we made the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's interesting. You make an interesting point there, because earlier in the season, I was very optimistic about the team, and I felt like, and I've said this multiple times, it was really nice to feel like every single game, waking up that day, knowing my team had a chance, right? Oh, yeah. Legitimate chance, not an any Sunday kind of any given Sunday chance, but a real legitimate chance. Yeah. But there was always that part of me, that long-suffering Cardinals fan, that was waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for it to fall apart. So now the kind of the pendulum has shifted, and they're struggling week in and week out. And it's almost like this very opposite reverse kind of view of it, where it's like, okay, they are stinking up the place, but this team is too talented to be this bad. So I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop for them to get back so waiting for it to kind of go back to at least being competitive, kind of like you're talking about. So, yeah, it's kind of tough. I want to acknowledge some of the folks in the live stream right now in the chat. Say, hey, we got Meme Source who's LOLing, I think, at the thumbnail for this the Cards group therapy thumbnail I had. We've got Chaser Alk, who's always part of the stream and active part of the Discord. Appreciate you being here. We have Otis Driftwood. Where's my somewhat optimistic people at, right? Yeah. Well, we'll be those somewhat optimistic people, I think, for you today. We've got Eddie Spaghetti. We need James Conner back. He is a definite beast and crucial piece of the offense. 100%.
Yes.
Driftwood against and Connor moves the chains. Absolutely agree. We've got Silver Wolf AZ. Cancel Cards Committee out. Did you all see that?
Have
you not seen this?
No, I haven't.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. Let me say hey to Goal Line Audibles, Go Cardinals, who's here. Okay, so there I saw this. Someone shared this. Apparently, there was some sports writer who covers the team, I guess, anonymously started this petition to petition the NFL to revoke the Cardinals' playoff qualifications, basically saying they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Please remove them from playoff. I mean, no, you can't take it seriously, obviously. I mean, it's asinine, but I think it speaks to and apparently a lot of people of science. I think it's a lot of very frustrated Cardinals fans who, yeah. Anyway, it's crazy.
That is something I did not know. So, wow.
I thought it was a joke. I mean, it kind of is in a sense because it's not going to happen, but I don't know. It's just crazy. We've got Mark Jackson in the house, always consistent, always reliable, always a great support. Hey, everyone, crisis averted. I have beer. 100%. We're going to need some of that. Well, we're going to want to get you all folks in the chat active in the conversation as well. So let me I've got, the first question is, how are you coping with the past month or so? And we kind of talked about that a little bit, but like, I think Mark Jackson has his beer. So you in the chat, tell us how you're coping with it. And, are you fine? Are you just talking yourself off the ledge? How are you coping with it? Right. You were hoping that thing was satire. Yep. 100% talking about the cancel cards, bandwagons fans signing it, upset their annual bandwagon didn't work out for the Super Bowl favorite. So folks in the chat, tell us how you're coping. So, how are you coping with it? What is your coping mechanism since this is our group therapy chat?
I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
I think the fact that, I kind of think like, okay, because of this new 7-seed format that, we're almost saved by it, because had this been 2 years ago or before it happened, I mean, the Cardinals would be, in the hunt or whatever it is. And, then magic numbers all across the board. And the other thing is looking up at the upcoming game against Dallas. I mean, that was a strong performance from the Cowboys. And I unfortunately had to go up against Dak, Schultz, and the Cowboys defense in the semifinals of fantasy. So I felt that twofold. But 50-point outburst that they had is only their 5th time in franchise history and the first time since like 1980. And also the Cowboys have allowed 10 100-yard rushing games, including 8 out of their last 9 to opponents. So if we're looking for James Conner and Chase Edmonds to come back, we could get a critical win here by the ground on Sunday.
Nice. Okay. So you're a little bit hopeful, kind of talking yourself into there's hope.
Yeah.
I like what person's saying here. In fact, denial. In fact, I just Googled like the stages. I just copied and pasted. The 5 stages are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, or acceptance. In fact, I'm going to create a poll and put this in the chat here. I'm going to create a new poll when I can. Okay. And I'm going to ask folks in the chat which which of the stages of grief are they currently experiencing? So, but once, Walter, why don't you tell me how are you coping with what's going on with the Cardinals?
Well, I'm not as down on the Cardinals as some people are at all. I just feel like I think to a degree the first half of the season they accomplished things beyond anyone's imagination and wildest dreams. I mean, who would have thought they would have started the season 7-0? Who would have thought they would have won their first 7 road games, 5 of which were against 20 playoff teams? I think they gave it everything they got to stay on that run, and a little bit of the air went out of the balloon on that last play. Prior to AJ Green, miscommunication. Kyler was hurt on the play before, and that's when the bubble burst a little bit. And I think it's been hard for the Cardinals because of their injuries and because of a very late bye week for the first time, which, by the way, coincided a week later that Patriots had their bye week, and we both, Cardinals and Patriots, were 1 seeds when we went into our byes, and it gives me solace to know that Belichick and the Patriots have been struggling. They couldn't handle the Colts, albeit the Colts had Nelson and Darius Leonard. But I think we did actually better than the Colts than they did. Because and here's one of my theories is that it just so happened that the night they were in Detroit, what's the national game on that Saturday night was Colts Patriots. And I'm convinced that they were in the hotel rooms, obviously watching their next opponent, which, by the way, would be 6 days later on Christmas, and wondering, oh, my God, how are we going to cope with this Colts team? They went to bed thinking about the Colts and not the Lions. And then the next day, hoping to save themselves a little bit to have, they had essentially 3 games in 12 or 13 days, which is a tough schedule late in the year. I mean, when you're stacking games like that, and I think emotionally, part of you wants to save yourself, hoping the Lions game is an easy game, because 6 days later you have to come back and play these red-hot Colts on Christmas Day and a national audience. So I think that they kind of were for the first time all year, they got caught looking ahead. They've been so good about
we're having a little bit of a
of having a game in front of the so
I think we have a little bit of issue, Walter, with your signal.
He had a late bye week. Both of us have lost to our rival.
Hey, Walter, we can't really hear you. We're going to let Kyler jump in. I think there's just a little bit of signal. For some reason, we can't hear you very clearly, Walter. Why don't we give it a second? Maybe we'll let Kyler jump in. Hopefully, your signal will kind of stabilize for just a second. It was just really kind of cutting out.
Kyler,
why don't you go? Maybe kind of.
You may have to leave and then come back in.
Why don't you try jumping out and jumping back in? Sometimes that fixes the issues. And then we'll have Kyler jump in. Kyler, how are you coping?
Well, a lot like Walter was saying, I try to give it perspective and maybe even like past season perspective. I mean, the Cardinals have 10 wins. And if at the very beginning of this season, I had been told a 10-7 season was coming up, then that's a pace of improvement for Kyler and Kliff. Now, obviously, they set expectations higher, and you should maintain higher expectations when you start off 7-0. But I think Walter's point was something that I've been thinking about and gives a lot of perspective. They did play 3 games in about 13 days. And I also totally agree that the Lions game became the stereotypical trap game, I guess. You're wanting it to be an easy game because you know you're banged up, and you know that the Colts game on Christmas Day is a national game that everyone in the country is going to be watching. So whether or not, and you can say all the platitudes you want in the press conferences and all that about we take every game seriously and all that, but just human nature. You're going to take some teams more seriously than others, and you're going to take the hot Colts more seriously than the Detroit Lions. And that the swing that's been happening, Rams, Lions, Colts all in a row, I don't exactly know what to attribute it to, other than, it is late season, people are injured and stuff like that. So trying to keep perspective that this isn't the same team that went 7-0. There are a lot of really important pieces that have been missing during this losing streak. So trying to remember that. And if the pieces that are supposed to come back in the playoffs come back, then there's a lot of hope for the team left. And the 3-game losing streak isn't the end of the world. But, well, we'll talk about it later. Yeah. But what if there's a 5-game losing streak to end the season?
Yeah. I know Aaron wants to jump in. Let me say just real quick, say hey to some of the folks in the chat, and then we'll let you jump in there. We've got Payo Time. Great dude, Zach. Appreciate you being here. What's up, Card Cool people? Nice to Aaron. Payo Time is a wonderful Rams YouTuber, a really good guy. Yeah, one of the few good. Yeah, right. No, but he's a good dude. I've done some streams with him. Just a genuinely good dude. So if you're not subscribed to him, I know it's not the Cardinals, but it's worth. I like to follow content creators for other teams, especially in the division. So appreciate you being here. We have Tony Marie Cavazos. Thank you for being here. I'm saying hopeful. I'm forever Cardinals fan. I love it. Yeah. Listen. If you've been a Cardinals fan as long as, and Walter and I both, he's been longer than I have. I've been pretty long, and you take the good with the bad, right? Mark Jackson, he's dealing with this with anger. Yeah, that's his coping. Let's see. Goal line audibles. My coping right now is typical Cardinals. Hope that we can all of a sudden become the old 7-0 JJ Watt led team once playoffs come. Here's hoping, right? We got Jose. Thank you for being here. CBS have Cardinals at number 11 in power rankings. Can we beat the top 10? Green Bay, Kansas City, Dallas, Rams, Tampa Bay, BB. What's my brain is
Baltimore?
Is that Baltimore? Maybe Tennessee. Listen, with the way they've been playing right now, I'm not going to argue with any power rankings that have them taking a major dive. I mean, they couldn't beat the Lions. They didn't beat the Colts. So
for the 3rd year in a row.
Yeah. So, let's see. We got Dilo here. Thank you for being here. One last leg at my long drive back to university now. Glad to be here. Well, we're glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Let's see. I want to make sure we catch everyone who's in here. Jovan Silva, thank you for being here. In playoffs, we're getting JJ back, D-Hop. I think this game for the Cowboys, we should be getting Rodney Hudson back. I just pray everyone stays healthy, and we should be good 100%. Oscar Cruz, whom more to blame, Kliff or Kyler? Well, if you're going to blame one of those, to me, it's Kliff. I'm a Kyler apologist. I think he's the guy. He's had a few bad games, but most quarterbacks have bad games. I'm not saying he's perfect, but it's not on Kyler. In fact, I think even the Colts game, he actually didn't play horribly. He had a few bad throws, but it was a lot of other stuff. We've got Grandizer 12. Thank you for being here, Walter. Yeah, he's telling us Walter's signal's cutting out. I've got Walter back in with us. Let's see. Make sure we got everyone. I think I've said Paul G. Paul G has a Cardinals forum that he runs. Good dude. Thank you for being here.
No.
Yeah. Arizona Animal, never one to be shy about anything. Is this making excuses for why we suck stream? No, it's not. Let's see.
And biceps.
Yeah, right. Enrique
Tyler
Walter,
leaked that one.
I hope we can win. Shut up, people who want to put Cowboys in Super Bowl after beat a team with no name. Yeah, I mean, hopefully the Cardinals can prove them, but they got to do some things different. All right, I wanted to make sure we said hey to everyone, but yes. So Walter, the kind of the signal cut out. So what were you sharing? Oh, or is he frozen?
I think he's frozen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we might be having some issues still with. Okay. Well, I'm going to get the next question up there, and folks, this is the part, and this is the part where maybe people are going to lay in, or maybe some people think that this is going to be excuses. I don't know. What's behind the slide? Why? Just why? What is it? What's the real issue? And I'll let the folks in the chat get their comments in there. Aaron, go ahead and get us started. We've been just going alphabetical order, so let's start with AARR Ron. Sorry,
I had $1 for every time.
Do you get you get that a lot?
No, because I got 2 A's and 2 R's. I get the AA LeBron. I'm just like,
okay.
Anyway,
So I'll stop then.
It's nothing at this point. I'm done with it. Do we have
Walter? We hear it's like a ghost echoing in the distance. We hear you once in a while, and then we don't. So I don't know if I don't know if there might be a spot with a Wi-Fi issue. I don't know.
It might be better just to have audio and cut out the camera feed. But
if you need to do that, if you want to, maybe try stopping the cam and leaving. In fact, see if you can. If maybe shut off the cam. Maybe the signal. That's a good call. Maybe the audio might come through. We'll let Aaron kind of jump into this question and see if Walter can get that sorted out. But so what do you think is behind the slide?
Well, hopefully I don't steal too many people's thunder, but I mean, Kliff has gone from tactician play caller, with precise strikes and, just setting things up, to going back to 2020 Kliff and be like, oh yeah, like double reverse. Cool. Let's run this. Or, I think it was one time in the Detroit game, inside the red zone or the 10 or the 5, whatever it was, and they didn't even run the ball once with the best red zone rushing touchdown scorer in the league. So one of the guys on my stream earlier this week said that, maybe the Cardinals abandoned the run too early. And I couldn't really agree more with that, because, I mean, here you have, Connor, who's the most physical running back, I think, probably in Arizona's history. If there's someone way further down the line that I don't know about, please correct me. But I mean, if you need to get a 3rd and 1 or somebody, just have Connor take the snap and sneak it. Because I still, besides maybe one time, have never seen Kyler Murray take a quarterback sneak. So I don't know what that is. I mean, Chris Streveler came in and did it last year. So just, you have to run the football. I mean, because in an offense that just, pass, and Kyler is already so far behind the line of scrimmage, if you take one negative play, this offense cannot get ahead of the sticks after that point. So I would say it's the lack of the running game, and Kliff just, doing dumb play calls.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, because a lot of folks in the chat agree. I've been saying this now for months, or at least for a couple months. The Cardinals get into way too many 2nd and longs, 3rd and longs. Sometimes it's the a lot of the false starts, right? A lot of those flags, but it's also what you're talking about. We're on 1st down. They're doing, and I think Kliff does a good job designing plays, but he's doing these plays on 1st down that, if they work, they work really big, but when they fail, you find yourself in 2nd and 17. So I think that's definitely a big part of it. Not running the ball enough. I think they need to, right now, they need more of like the kind of game plan they had when Colt McCoy was starting, except with Kyler starting. Right.
Right.
So yeah, Kyler, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Aaron about the run game, but one thing is obvious that it is the problem. What's causing it, I don't necessarily know. But in the last 3 games, which we have lost, we have outgained our opponents. Now, that's not something you usually do. You don't usually outgain and lose the game. So the team is getting in its own way. Penalties, turnovers are turning into points for opponents, even though sometimes it doesn't feel like it or look like it, but the Cardinals are moving the ball. They're getting down the field. They're not scoring points in the red zone anymore. And I think a lot of that has to do with DeAndre Hopkins being out. He is a safety blanket in the red zone. Like, you can't deny that. And Kyler is much more comfortable with D-Hop in the red zone. And I think Kliff is too, because Kliff has gone back to some of the really weird red zone play calling that we saw a couple years ago and his rookie year as well. And then the second big thing that's really just one player, but it's absolutely noticeable the second he's not in the lineup. When Rodney Hudson is not on the field, that offense does not work the same at all. And Kyler Murray is nowhere near as comfortable as he usually is. And Kliff's not as comfortable calling anything that moves down the field. If Rodney Hudson is not out there, he is the linchpin of that entire offense, 100%.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you just said. In fact, like, I tweeted during one of the recent games, there was a 1st and goal, and the Cardinals did not run it with Connor once. The ball,
I think it was Detroit.
I think you're right. Yeah, and I think I tweeted, like, how can you, like, have I forget exactly what the tweet was, but a lot of people, it got a lot of likes and retweets, like, because I think a lot of people were feeling the same way. Like, you have this guy who's been one of the best goal line backs in the league this year. He's been a revelation. And how do you have a 1st and goal, a goal to go situation without a single attempt? I don't care if the first rush you were running it straight up the middle with him and it gets you 1 yard in a cloud of dust and it doesn't work. Try it.
I'm pretty sure that was 4 passes in a row, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah,
right before halftime.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's inexplicable, and it's, you know, and I mean, I think what's going on is, in that regard, is Kliff is taking plays that work between the 20s and trying them at the goal to go situations. And, like, early in the season, they had it right. You had Connor going kind of up the middle-ish, and then you had Kyler as a threat on the perimeter, and Kyler would, bootleg and run some of those in, and then Connor would run them up the middle, and the defense had to prepare for both plus the throw, right? And that's a simple formula, but you do that, like, do the up the middle, and then the play action to the up the middle, and have Kyler run it in at the perimeter. Like, do that, and occasionally throw it to Zach Ertz and Hopkins when he's healthy, right? But instead, they're doing fades to Christian Kirk and wildcats, and it's just, yeah. So I think that's a huge part, and absolutely Hudson is, that is the injury that matters more than any other than Kyler. Everything works
more
better
than DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah,
Rodney Hudson is the injury that's holding that offense back.
100%. Underscore saying Kliff is too much of a player's coach. Leave it to the locker room to ask themselves what went wrong. Maybe. I mean, I don't tend to. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an apologist. But, like, I think people blame Kliff in terms of the discipline stuff. I think these players are professionals. They brought in veterans. I don't think it's a discipline issue. They may have some players. I know people disagree with me on this. Some people do. I'm not putting it on the discipline side. You've got a lot of really good vets that police that locker room, but I do put the play calling on him.
But
I don't know.
Also on that point too, like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, then shame on me. This is 3 times in a row now. Something has got to give. If it's schematics, if it's game planning, is it nutrition? Is it recovery? 12 games and 3 games in 12 days or whatever it was. Like, there's something deeper that's going on right now in this slide.
Hey, Evan Keel agrees with so much of what we've been saying the last 3 minutes. So thank you, Evan. Appreciate you being here. Yeah. So let me just let me look. Other folks people are talking about the penalties, though, the red zone offense. We talk about, Max Garcia and Josh Jones. Max Garcia playing instead of Rodney Hudson, and then Josh Jones playing out of position at guard.
I mean, I will say on Max Garcia that I don't remember last year or Kyler's rookie year ever seeing so many bad snaps. Mm-hmm. You know how tall your quarterback is. I know you played 3 games with Colt McCoy, who's a bit taller, but there's no reason for snaps to be going over his head and going onto the ground and Kyler just having to fumble around and fall on the ball. Because I swear I've seen that 4 times this year.
Yeah,
where he just has to fall on the ball because of a bad snap. I don't remember that in the past couple of years.
The other thing is that moving from right tackle to center, someone who, played all 5 positions on the line, and I played D3 college football as an offensive lineman. If you are not basically a center as a kid in youth football or like freshman, it's incredibly hard to learn. I mean, because you are the quarterback of the offensive line, and those of you who have either watched my stream or you see me with TCR here before, you know how much in depth I go about it. Some guys just can't play center. I mean, and whether it's getting good snaps while keeping your eyes on your target, it is one of the hardest jobs that no one talks about.
Yeah, and this is another tweet I sent out this last week that got a lot of attention. Was about Garcia, and was more or less I was saying a lot of people are saying cut Max Garcia, and Max Garcia is a good backup guard. He's got starting experience. He's played okay as a guard. In fact, actually, some people won't like this, but in terms of his PFF grades and what I've seen. Playing the center position, aside from the snapping part, he's been okay. Like, he hasn't been great, but he has not been horrible in terms of the pass protection. He's not as consistent as Hudson, but it's been the snaps. So, the problem is they're playing him out of position. You want Max Garcia as a backup guard on your team who can start if you need him to at guard. But the problem is, again, they don't have a true backup center on the roster, and it was a decision they made, and they cut Lamont Gaillard. They traded Mason Cole, and I know neither of those guys were world beaters, but I don't know. I'd probably want either one of those guys as my backup center ahead of Max Garcia because they can snap the ball.
Gaillard had some pretty decent showings last year.
Oh, I would
have loved to keep him.
I think
it was a mistake.
63 or whatever it was. Because that's the true flex guy that you don't see very much in the NFL anymore. A good guard and a decent enough center that was so much better than Mason Cole.
That's the one that really surprised me that they cut him. I wish they still had him on. But he's on the Cincinnati practice squad. I don't know why they don't sign him.
The other thing is, for whatever reason, Brian Winters was, either cut or released or let go from the team, I think before the Jacksonville game. And now that's looking like a really bad move because, Sean Harlow has struggled, and I don't even know who's the backup behind him, and anybody else. So
Sean Harlow just went on the COVID list.
Yeah.
Great.
Let me real quick say hey to a few folks that have jumped in the chat that we haven't. I try to at least acknowledge everyone at least once. And we've got Gavin Hawes. In fact, he's got a question, so we'll acknowledge him, and we'll come back to this question in a second. What's your thoughts on Kirk worth an extension? But let me say hey to a few other people before. So this person's that's a spammer. All right. In fact, let's block user. Sorry, don't come in here spamming stuff in here. Angel Garcia, have you guys already discussed Hudson's return, how it will impact against Dallas? I actually see a trap game for Dallas. We talked about how important it is. We may talk about that a little more, but we all, I think, agree that that's probably the most impactful person in terms of, aside from maybe Kyler Murray, that they've been missing and what he means for the offense. Say hey, JC, thanks for being here. We need to get together. World peace, appreciate you being here. What's up, Professor? Shout out to the GOAT. Hopefully we come together for the playoffs. My guys, cheers. Yeah, here's hoping. Sam Martinez, love Vance, but after him, not even attempting to have Simmons and Xavier on the field, just appalling. I'm starting to doubt him a lot. I still believe in him as a good defensive coordinator. I do wish he would play them both. I think we'll see Collins next year. But yeah, Wolf Langus, what's up? Thanks for being here. Yeah, Zaven back up to Joe Walker. I did a video about what's going on with Zaven Collins. I don't know that I completely answered what's going on, but I at least put some of the connected some of the dots.
2019 bad.
Yeah. So let me just two more. It's Angel. I don't know if Hank, thanks for being here. Zaven, the decision to have him sit rather has been disappointing, 100%. And then we've got Dio pass predictions. The Kyle play to or die.
Close sections is nice.
All right. So and then Ben Saban. Do you think Cardinals can go far in the playoffs? I think they will play the Packers in the playoffs and lose the Packers. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Like what's question I wanted to kind of ask about. What do you think about Christian Kirk? Do you think they should re-sign him in the offseason because he's on the last year of his rookie deal?
So I went in on Christian Kirk in the offseason for writing on Raising Zona. And up until this past season, he had only had 3 100-yard games in 3 years. He had only caught 61% of his passes, despite the fact there were formations, designed, air raid spread out, 10 personnel, running back, no tight ends, 4 or 5 receiver sets to help get him the ball. And he just has not produced. I mean, I don't think he was ever the same since breaking his foot in Green Bay, a game that I was at, 3 years ago. And, I still stand by that. Like he's a great guy, off the field and, probably a great teammate. But I think that the Cardinals should let him walk because, I mean, as cool as it is to have someone who is like, a hometown kid, Cardinals kind of had like this hometown fascination for a little bit in 18 and 19, DJ Foster, Kirk, the one no-name running back who scored against the Cowboys in the blowout that one year. I forget his name. They're all like from the same high school. That's like got to stop for the Cardinals. I mean, it's great to have that, but these players have typically not produced, maybe outside of Byron Murphy. And I guess Buda Baker go to high school there. I don't know.
No, he didn't. You're talking DJ Foster, right? Is that the
DJ back? Foster, Christian Kirk, and there was some other Arizona.
Oh, there was another one. Okay.
But my thing is, it's time to move on. Him and Andy Isabella should go. I saw someone else comment about that too. And the cap space is going to go up by like what, $26 million next year? Go spend some money, get some quality, 3A, 3B wide receivers.
What do you think about Christian Kirk, Kyle?
I'm sorry, you kind of cut out for me.
What do you think about the question about bringing Christian Kirk back?
Well, I agree with Angel that it's a tough one because Christian Kirk is the hot and cold player. So you do have great games from him. And then it seems like he disappears for games at a time. And I just checked the stat lines and everything. And honestly, I was a little surprised to see that he was at 860 yards. He only needs 140 more to get a 1,000-yard season. No. And that's sort of like a benchmark that you measure wide receivers by, is their number of 1,000-yard seasons. We tend to do that when we're looking at stats. So if you only looked at that, then you would say, yes, we should put forth an effort to re-signing Christian Kirk. I do think he's going to want more money than the team should necessarily pay for what he has produced. I think any re-signing of him is going to be a little bit of an overpay. But if they do, I'm not necessarily upset because I think when he does play well, Christian Kirk plays well. Like he has some big games and he steps in. But when you do have your number one, DeAndre Hopkins, go out, Christian Kirk's not going to be a number one wide receiver, even in that injury situation. It's just not who he's going to be. It's like the Juju Smith-Schuster situation with Antonio Brown. He had an amazing 2018, was it? When Antonio Brown had an amazing 1,500-yard season. And he thrived in that type of situation. But where has he been since Antonio Brown's no longer on the Steelers? Christian Kirk's not going to be your Kyler's go-to number one guy. He's going to get some deep balls every once in a while, and because of those, he's going to have some 150-yard games. But the Cardinals aren't going to be that much worse off, I don't think, without him on the team. So if they walk away from him, I think that's probably the smart business decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk about these questions, it's always a matter of, well, what price, right? How much? What's it going to cost? And, if Kirk's got a skill set that there are teams out there that might look to try to bring him in to be their number two, I wouldn't know that anyone would look for him as a number one receiver, but he might get some nice offers on the market. If the Cardinals can bring him back for a contract that's reasonable and he wants to come back and maybe give us a little bit of a hometown discount, I like him a lot in that third receiver, that slot receiver role, and the whole, and I see you, we'll get to you next, Aaron. The whole thing about the inconsistency, that doesn't bother me too much if you're not counting on him to be number one or two receiver, because what you want, ideally what you want and what they've had when they were doing well is you've got your Hopkins, who's your go-to guy. And then the rest of the guys have their moments. They have their games, right? They take turns stepping up. And Kirk has been one of those guys who's been in that rotation of guys who stepped up. So inconsistency is the name of the game for a number three wide receiver. And I'm okay with that, because that what you've got then is a guy who has big games for you and wins games for you sometimes. And as long as you're not counting that guy to be your number one, that's okay, right? So if they can get him back, don't have to pay too much, and he stays in that slot role, and him and Rondale Moore are the two slot receivers, and they've got the outside guys in Hopkins and Green or someone else, I bring him back if you can without killing the salary cap. Aaron, you wanted to jump in there.
I had found out the name of the guy who I was searching for.
Okay, so the random running back, okay?
Right, and let's see how many people in the chat remember this. So I was wrong. This guy was not from an Arizona high school. Mm-hmm. But in 2014, during the Cardinals' 9-1 start or whatever it was, they beat the Cowboys 28-17. The last touchdown scored in that game by the Cardinals was by a guy named Marion Grice.
Okay, vaguely remember the name. Okay,
yeah. So that's the flashback. That's
nice. Let me get another question up here to get the folks in the chat going on this. Is there hope for this season? Is all lost, or is there hope for this season? What do y'all think? And Aaron, why don't you go ahead and jump in there with your thoughts if there's hope, and I'm going to kind of peruse the chat while y'all are discussing your thoughts on that.
Well, I personally, not just because of this whole stream, but also you have to think of what's going on, in the NFL, because, the Rams this week, they have to travel over to Baltimore, and, it's going to be, a long plane ride. And also Baltimore is tough, even with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. But also, while we're looking at both sides of the glass here, Baltimore has allowed 18 plays of 45 yards or more on the season. And so the Rams could easily walk in and just sucker punch the heck out of the Ravens. So, and then you're going back to the other side. The Ravens played the Packers better than almost anyone has all year. It wasn't for a dumb decision by Harbaugh to listen to his players and should have just kicked the extra point. You got to take your chances against Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you don't waste an effort like that. So basically what I'm saying is, the Rams can still lose. And also, are the Rams going to be like, all right, what is more important right now, the division or the health of Matthew Stafford, who's been struggling? You could probably play. I mean, we all know how bad John Wolford schooled us last year. So, I was talking to Pale Time earlier today on his stream, and according to Pale, he was saying Wolford is not the same guy that, was that, killer quarterback, in those last two games last year. But at the same time, you don't know what the Rams are going to do, because they have so many big name players that either got COVID or, they may have had an injury history and you don't want to risk that. So would, for some reason, the Rams, just quarantine their star players for 2 weeks and then just take whatever they get, when the playoffs come around. So that's what I'm thinking, other people helping us out in the very small chance that the Rams may fetch the stars.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think there is absolutely hope for the season. There are 2 games left, right? And if the Cardinals can win these last 2 games and actually go into the playoffs with some momentum and having a good win against Dallas as well to just sort of boost their self-esteem a little bit, then anything can happen. We've actually seen the gamut of possibilities with the team this year already. We've seen some of their peaks of absolutely what they're capable of is beating any team in the league, and that they're actually capable of losing to the worst team in the league. So is there hope? Yes. It's just not going to ever be a guarantee. And a lot of that's just going to come down to who that first round wildcard matchup is going to be.
Yeah. I'm going to use this as an opportunity because I think it ties in with what Ben has asked here. Do you think the Cardinals can go far in the playoffs? I think they will play the Packers in the playoffs and lose to the Packers. So obviously, if you ask, can they go?
Yeah,
I think they can. It's kind of something we talked about earlier, and not even just in the any given Sunday, a bad team can beat a good team. If Hudson is back, Kyler is healthy, and a few other players get healthy or stay healthy, this team is capable of beating anyone in the league. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be favored against anyone on the team. You put them against the Packers. If the Cardinals are healthy and you put them against the Packers 10 times in a row on a neutral field, I still think the Packers win 6 or 7 of those right now. But the Cardinals can. They absolutely can, because when they're healthy, they're talented enough to be dangerous. And when you all have watched football long enough, if you get into the playoffs, you have a puncher's chance. Right? I mean that the classic example is the New York Giants beating the 16-0 regular season Patriots. Right? I mean, Patriots were supposed to, run through the playoffs and have the true undefeated season all the way through, and they didn't. So yeah, they can go far in the playoffs. Do I think they will? Not with what I've seen so far, right? So I don't know. What do you got? You guys have any thoughts you want to add to that?
Well, of course, as someone who is a Cardinals fan who was born and grew up in Wisconsin, as much as I would love that, I don't think it's going to happen, just because of the way that Aaron Rodgers just manipulates defenses on a cerebral level that is out of this world. And, I'm not trying, to praise Aaron Rodgers for everything that he is, but I mean, you have to give credit where it's due. And then the other thing is I personally think that, and this is just me, but when the Cardinals earlier this offseason decided to reduce OTAs and not practice through them and not try to pipe in some crowd noise that is going to be there now, that was not there last year, because, I mean, everybody knows what Packer fans do, especially at Lambeau. And that place in a playoff game is somewhere I wouldn't want to be walking in there. So I can see him getting there, but I don't think we would win.
Yeah. See, the last drive of the Green Bay game is kind of everything that you can see or need to know about the 2021 Arizona Cardinals. That was a 90-yard drive that Kliff and Kyler executed perfectly for 90 yards of it. It was a beautiful drive. And for all intents and purposes, statistically, it should have ended with a touchdown and a win. And it didn't, because of a mistake that we made. Not necessarily a great play that our opponent made, but we made a mistake. AJ Green didn't turn around. We lose the game. That's sort of been the story of this last 3-game slide. Is we've seen the greats of the 2021 Cardinals, but we're getting in our way. And I think that can definitely be fixed. And even in my gut, I want to feel like there's a really good chance that Dallas is sort of a get right game.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to put us in a playoff situation against the Packers, and I had to put money on it and take away team bias, I don't think I could bet against Aaron Rodgers.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there is that weird historic thing between some franchises, Cardinals have sort of eaten Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and had some really historic games against him.
But all of those have been at the Cardinal Stadium.
Yeah, and different quarterbacks, different coaches. Those long histories, I'm a little skeptical of those because so many things change. Sometimes it's just coincidence of small sample sizes, but a lot of things are different, right? Sorry, Aaron.
No, you're good. And the other things too is that that was a Devontae Adams list receiving corps.
Yeah.
Look at the depth of our corners right now. No one's going to cover that guy. It's going to be like the 1982 wildcard game, 42-7 in that strike shortened season.
Don't we have a guy in our practice squad, Russell Douglas, who's we could? Oh wait, no.
No, we don't have that guy anymore.
No, why we?
Here's the thing. Cardinals fans should not feel bad about Rasul Douglas because one, practice squad guy. Two, nobody knew who he was. Three, he plays in a way easier division than the NFC West. And four, he was in the right place at the right time. Another person who famously did that was Larry Brown, Super Bowl 30. Look at the rest of his career when he went to Oakland. Case closed.
I would push back just in one regard. He's actually he's a middle round draft pick. He's not he's like a third or fourth round pick, I think, who just didn't kind of, his career didn't start well. So he's not a completely unknown kind of commodity. He's a guy, I pay attention to those guys they were drafted in those middle rounds. They didn't live up to expectations, but now they're kind of the back end of your roster because those guys, if they get it right, might become at least serviceable players. So that's just the one thing I would push back. But hindsight is 2020. So absolutely, clearly if the Cardinals knew he was going to play this well, he would not have been sitting on our practice squad unprotected. So there's definitely a hindsight element to it. I want to use this. This is a really detailed but good question Grandizer's asking. I think it ties in some of the things we've talked about. The Cowboys game, you talking about how you're hoping it's the get right game. And certainly I do too. And I think this is a really good way of framing it. What are the three keys to beat the Cowboys? And what are the three keys for the Cowboys to beat the Cardinals? Kyle, why don't you go ahead and get us started on this one?
So the thing with this team, there's a lot of talent. It's shown it. They can win games. So really the three keys to beat the Cowboys are kind of just generic points, but going back to what we were talking about earlier is run the ball is going to be number one. Run the ball on the Cowboys. Two, more specific than prevent turnovers, but just don't throw towards Trayvon Diggs. Just don't do it. Just ignore him and that side of the field the entire time is probably what you're going to have to do because he's on a tear. And you can kind of see the multi-interception games with Kyler getting in his head and preventing turnovers. It's going to be really important against the Cowboys because they've proven to be pretty good at forcing them this year. And let's see. Third key is probably just make Dak uncomfortable. And not even only just pass rushing or something like that, but just make him uncomfortable with the receivers that he's most comfortable with. Make him uncomfortable throwing to Amari Cooper and take away some of his safety. And he's going to make enough mistakes to give you a better chance in the game.
And then for the devil's advocate part of that question, if I was Dan Quinn, I think is the defensive coordinator, I'm sending someone who is a backside screamer on any play at all. In case it's a run, a stretch run, it's a rollout, or just a passing play, because Cardinals are always trying to get that, motion going the other way, but they never have anyone in there to block it. And that's something that went down in the video that, TCR did with Brett Coleman, is that the Cardinals don't get leverage in a run game, in a zone running scheme. That's what you need. I mean, and of course, why was the running game so good in 2019? Kliff's first year, it's because Larry Fitzgerald was still there, the best blocking receiver that the Cardinals probably have ever had. And now you got these little, I hate to use this word, little pipsqueak wide receivers who can't get to them. Well, they can get there, but they don't know how to run block. So I would send someone screaming off of that, crash the angles, make Arizona have to beat you through the run. And then you already know that you're going to bring pressure inside the 3 techs. So from guard to guard, it is Stuntville. It is swim and rip. Any technique, you let those guys go nuts because that's the weakest part of the line. Yeah, you may run into Rodney Hudson, but the 2 guys on the side of him are definitely not as strong. And then on the third way is if I were the Cowboys, I would just find ways to basically demoralize and take the energy out of the team. Oh, we're going to punt? No, we're going to fake punt, and we're going to steal a possession. We're going to keep going here. And just, if this is Dallas and you really want to show that you're for real, you got to basically 75% repeat your performance from last week. So pedal to the metal, and just you would have to punch Arizona in the mouth from my perspective.
Yeah. I think the first key to respond ties in with Erica's question here. Looks like Hudson's going to be back. That's what the word is. So I think key number 1 for the Cardinals is have Rodney Hudson on the field, healthy. As simple as that is, because like Kyler said earlier, so much of the offense, it works when he's there and it doesn't when he's not, so I think, to build on that, I think against the Cowboys, the Cardinals offense has to put points on the board consistently, because we know their run defense is bad and we know the Cowboys can run the ball. So the Cowboys, and this ties into their game plan, if they can keep the game close or get a lead, they can keep running the ball. If the Cardinals can get ahead, then the Cowboys have to pass more. And even though our pass defense hasn't been great lately, and especially with our cornerback injuries, that no doubt that's a concern, but that is our stronger suit. So for the Cardinals, it's, not having those situations where they have those 90-yard drives like Kyler again was talking about that just sputter, right? And so they need to keep putting points on the board. Kyler Murray needs to not turn the ball over.
Yeah, biggest one.
Absolutely. And then their defense needs to revert to what they were early in the season when they were pretty decent, right? At least good enough, especially on 3rd and 4th downs and against the pass where teams would run, but eventually they'd stall out because they'd get to a 3rd down and they wouldn't convert it, right? And then like the Rams game, the way that game script went. For the Cowboys, it's run the ball, get a few turnovers with Diggs, and then run the ball some more, and then occasionally, let their wide receivers make our, the cornerbacks we're pulling off of the street look silly, right? So yeah.
I will go back to what I said. I still think running the ball against the Cowboys is super important, but the biggest way for the Cardinals to win this game is, and it sounds easy, is just to score first.
Seriously, yes.
In
totally
these
agree.
games that we've lost, we got a quick punch in the mouth and never recovered.
Yeah.
The games that we've won, and we've won big, it was a fast strike possession. Well, it was a 3 and out, and then a fast strike possession. We score a point. You feel comfortable. The other team's a little bit more hesitant to run the ball on you. But if Dallas gets to score first, and then they get to run Zeke and Pollard on you for the rest of the game, it's hard to come back from that. So if the Cardinals can score first, that's going to be a big, big way for them to win.
Yeah.
And that's such a disappointing thing. A 1-score game to this team feels like a 3-score game.
Feels like you're not coming back.
Yeah.
Let me say hey to a few folks that I like. Again, I try to at least hit one comment from everyone who's in the chat. If I miss you, I apologize. I can't get every single comment, but Josh, thanks for being here. A frequent commenter on the videos on the channel. Appreciate you, Josh. Truly believe the Cardinals are going to get healthy at the right time and win the Super Bowl, or winning the playoffs. If Kyler stays healthy in these next 2 games, we can go far. Marker words. Yeah, listen, that is not like pie in the sky. That can happen. If they can get healthy, they can compete. So not saying that will happen, but it could. Let's see. We've got someone Chris is checking in for group therapy. I'm just here so I don't get fined. Appreciate you being here, Chris, for our group therapy session. Want to say hi to Sunny Hectic, whatever, or Sunny Hectic. I don't know what that's supposed to be. Is the X just supposed to represent? I don't know. But thank you for being here. Can we see more Zaven Collins with Gold and Kennard having COVID? I think this is a really good question because, obviously, listen, he hasn't been playing much. And again, if you haven't checked it out, I did a video talking about what's going on with Collins. Like I said, I don't have all the answers in it, but I've kind of at least given what we know and what we've heard. And the short answer is I think it has to do with him still lingering effects from the shoulder injury. But, even though he's not an edge player, when he was coming out in the draft and when the Cardinals took him, there were some people thinking they might move him to edge. Now, I don't know that they're going to do that full time, but with, Kennard and Golden out, do you think that we might see more Zaven snaps, whether or moving someone else to the edge? What do you guys think?
They won't. They're obsessed with Joe Walker, and they'll find someone else to pull off the street. They will not play Zaven Collins because this is Isaiah Simmons 2020 all over again.
Okay.
I know it's supposed to be positive, but that's how I see it.
What I would probably do is let Zaven play on the inside of Jordan Hicks and move Simmons outside for a game. He has the positional flexibility to play all those positions, and he's been getting a fair amount of playing time, except for the past couple games. But most of the season, he's been playing quite a lot. So, that's what I would do. Yeah. Give Zaven the time in the middle where he's supposed to be, and let Simmons. He's a great pass rusher when he's given the opportunity. He's fast. He turns angles really well. I think it would be fine for a game.
Yeah. So underscore. Yeah. And you're right. Kennard and Golden are both outside linebackers. They're kind of that jack linebacker, if you will, the opposite of Chandler Jones. But sometimes with that outside linebacker that plays opposite of Chandler, that person is sometimes they're pass rushing, but sometimes they're also setting the edge against the run, and sometimes they're dropping into coverage. So I feel like when you have that person who is that outside linebacker across from Chandler Jones, there's a little more flexibility to put someone in there who isn't your traditional pass rusher. So I get that it's not a positional fit, but with what's going on with the depth, I could see them taking one of those guys, whether it's Simmons or Collins, and getting them in there a little bit with the rotation. But obviously, there's Gardek who's probably going to see some of those snaps too. Let's see. So want to say hey to anyone else I missed, or get any other questions. Ruben Ortiz, we're like the 2005 Vikings. Yeah, maybe
2003.
Yeah, right. Grim Dark AZ, thanks for bringing me to therapy session, at least for the end. Well, yeah. Well, we're glad you're here. We're 3-4 defensive linebackers with different responsibilities. I could confuse them, and maybe that's why they'd play Simmons. So, but when they're obviously they haven't been playing him there. I'm just wondering, with being down so many guys, you might see it, but maybe you won't. I don't know. So let me get this next question out there for folks in the chat to start putting. What's the path forward now? What is the path forward now and in the offseason? So, essentially, so what I'm asking here is, what is it that the Cardinals can do to right the ship this year? And then what is it they need to do in the offseason? What are the moves they need to make based on what we've seen so far. Obviously, we need to see how the rest of the season, the postseason plays out. But with what you've seen so far, what do they need to do? Aaron, why don't you get us started on that?
Well, I think, of course, for the rest of the season and the postseason, just you have to do the best you can, because if you put up a close fight to the Cowboys and you lose, there's no shame in that. I mean, you get the Seahawks in your own building for week 17. You should be able to take care of them. And then, as of right now, we're supposed to be going up against, Arizona East and Tampa Bay and all of that. So that would be the game where if you are going to start being your old self, it has to be there. Regardless of that outcome, you have to invest in new interiors on the line, and you also have to get rid of Christian Kirk and Andy Isabella and maybe Chase Edmonds. I know that's probably going to give me a lot of hate here, but I have just never been that big of a fan of Chase, and I don't see his production going in there. And not like Benjamin is above him as much as I personally love but that running back depth has just sucked. I mean, I've been asking for a running back. Like Najee Harris was right there. I thought that was going to be a great pick. But I digress. Get a running back, upgrade the lines, get rid of the short receivers, bring in some tough guys who want to hit, and also draft a freaking quarterback. And finally, put Kyler under center. I mean, you don't have to sneak it, but just put him under center, because no one is going to be ready for that. The bootlegs off that thing are going to be just viciously deadly. So, and you want to start getting the best goal line running back off, and then have them get some steam and an actual blocker, and boom. I mean, it's that easy, in my opinion. That's it. And plus, the cap space is much more next year. So, that's it.
Okay. What do you think, Kyler?
Well, going forward for these next two games and the playoffs, find the running game again and just cut down on the team mistakes that are coming from who knows where. But if we're going to put it on Kliff, he is the coach. So fix some of the coaching, fix some of the change in play calling that didn't need to happen late in the season when you had precedent for the first half where everything was working beautifully. You didn't have to change really anything. That's the way for the rest of the season. You do those things, anything can happen in the playoffs. So who knows? They could have a deep run. They could go out one and done. But in the off season, re-sign James Conner. That's one of my first moves. He scored a big percentage of your points this year. James Conner is a guy that you want to keep around on your team. And then you have to address in some way the run defense, and whether that means bringing in another big name defensive tackle to help with run defense, or just drafting something around there. You have to. It's no longer like a luxury to have someone in that space. And we were so vulnerable when JJ Watt went out that you can't leave that the way it is with Fotu and Rashard Lawrence. Something has to change in that position. And you also have to address the secondary, because even when completely healthy, the secondary gave us some pretty decent play. The secondary depth has been horrendous. And anytime there's an injury in that position group, really bad things tend to happen. Marco Wilson's gotten hurt twice this season. Byron Murphy's dealt with injuries. You have to address secondary probably in the draft. But there are defensive positions that definitely need to be addressed. Offense, if a lot of that can just stay together and be healthy, then that is a good offensive roster. I don't know if we have Zach Ertz for more than this season.
No, they'll have to re-sign him. He's I think he's got like a automatically voiding year or something like that on his contract. I
would re-sign Zach Ertz. Kyler seemed really comfortable with him. And when he's willing to just throw it in the middle, Zach Ertz has been really dependable. So I'd re-sign him as well.
Yeah, let me say hey real quick to Tapatio, man. Appreciate you being here. Erica's asking, is Connor back? My understanding is he's questionable for the game. Do you guys know more than I do about that? That it's still, we're not sure yet if he's going to be playing.
I mean, I haven't heard anything, but I would give it like a 30% chance that he comes back. My thing is just keep him healthy for the playoffs at this point.
Yeah.
And then TCR, can I respond to one of the comments that I saw earlier?
Yeah, tell me which one. I'll put it up there.
It was Arizona Animal about Najee Harris.
Oh yeah, he loves Najee Harris. We went back and forth on this.
Okay. Because I couldn't really understand the vibe of this, but I mean,
he's Mr. Najee Harris fanboy.
Okay. Well, I was going to say because I would have been defending my case, but if he agrees with me, then
no, he thinks the Cardinals totally should. And I'm going to tell you, it's not the player I don't like. I absolutely fundamentally do not believe in drafting running backs in the first round, and I'm really iffy on taking him in the second round. I know there's some amazing players that have been drafted in those positions, but the ability to get guys in the third, fourth, and fifth round who end up being really good, and the fact that short careers, I know you've heard it before, but I philosophically do not believe in drafting running backs first round, and I'm not huge on taking them the second round either.
Can I just run down a list from an article that I wrote about that?
Yeah.
Basically, Kyle, you may remember this article way back before draft. I said that the way the Cardinals should go in the first round this past year was cornerback or running back. And here are a list of first-round running backs that have done pretty good. 2016, Zeke. 2017, Christian McCaffrey. Also in 2017, Leonard Fournette. Sony Michel didn't do too bad, scored a winning touchdown in the AFC, conference championship game, and then Josh Jacobs in 2019. So I don't buy that taking a running back in the first round is like ixnay on the xnay. I mean, if you see a guy that's going to elevate this offense, look what James Conner has done. But Najee has more speed than Conner. So, I mean, it was kind of there, but of course, Arizona did what they did, and the rest is history.
Well, I think it's about draft value, right, Joseph?
Yeah, it is all about opportunity costs. And let me counter that with last year. I looked at the top 10 running backs in terms of yardage. 2 of them were first rounders. Now I know some of that had to do with injured players, but that's part of the point that they get so injured so frequently. Like 8 of the top 10 running backs were taken in the second round or later. And not all of them were second rounders. A couple of them were Cooks, Henry, but you had a lot of guys like James Robinson, undrafted, and a lot of guys middle rounds. So it's not that those players don't do well, but what it is it's an opportunity cost thing where, okay, if it's like, think about the corner. Okay. James Conner, what was he, a 4th round pick for the Steelers? I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was a day 3 pick. I think he was a 4th round pick. And if you want to help me out, that'd certainly be appreciated. It's like think about, okay,
third round.
Okay, so he's a 3rd round pick. Okay, and think of it this way: you can get a running back like James Conner in the 3rd round, and even Chase Edmonds in the 4th. I know you don't love him, but I like those 2 together. You get, with a 3rd and 4th round value, you get those 2 guys as your backfield who've been very effective. But what kind of cornerback are you getting in the 3rd round or 4th round? Right? So what kind of cornerback are you getting in the 3rd round or 4th round?
I mean, just look at Marco Wilson and how bad he's been.
Okay. So my point is, I'd rather take a cornerback in the 1st round, right? And then take a running back in the 4th round, because if you take that running back in the 1st round, then you're getting Marco Wilson. Instead, we did linebacker, but that's kind of, for me, it's not that I don't like those 1st round running backs. They're first rounders for a reason. It's all about a roster building opportunity cost thing from my perspective. So that's my take on it. But it's for me. It's fun to kind of look at those kinds of things, right? Did you want to respond? I know I just kind of monologue there.
No, I mean that was pretty much it. But with everything that said, there's no defending taking Zaven Collins. You can't take 2 linebackers in a row. It's not like you there's just nothing to do that. That was Steve Keim just panicking because there were too many options on the board. and he went with the best player available, which I think is a total BS strategy. You draft where your team needs it.
Well, I think I agree. I still think Collins is going to be a good player. What we've seen when he was healthy on the field, he did look good. I still think he's going to be good. But I agree with you from the same logic that I put into my thoughts on the running back. You don't need another middle linebacker in the middle of the first round. If you don't like the value at the other positions, trade back.
Exactly.
Get yourself some extra draft capital, trade back, and get like an Asante Samuel Jr. or a cornerback later, right? Plus, and it doesn't have to be him, but someone in that tier, right? That second tier of cornerbacks. And then have an extra pick to get a middle linebacker in the third round who's going to probably be pretty good too. So
Grandizer, great comment. Grandizer, great comment.
I'll check that out. Let's see. Yeah, mean shoe. Yeah, I think Marco is still going to be okay. I don't think he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I think rookie quarterback struggle. I think he'll be a serviceable number 2 cornerback. But yeah, Kyle, let me say hey to some of the folks in here, but if you want, and then if you want to jump in on that, what we've been talking about at all. Ian Keller basically accepting losses. Seems we're playing off every side of the ball. But thank you for being here. And KT Bonga, thanks for being here. Should we build up Zaven as his team run stopper and pass rusher? He's a much bigger person than Simmons, so I like Vance to put him pass rusher, test waters. I think we should keep him I think he needs to start as our Mike linebacker next year. And I think we just have to take this year as a little bit of a red shirt. I think he's going to be a better run stopper. I don't know. Maybe, what do you guys think about, since we're talking about Zaven Collins, and I think, I again agree that we probably shouldn't have taken him because of the value, but what do you think about what should we do with Zaven Collins? And look, Kyler, maybe we'll let you kind of start off with that one.
I mean, I think what we saw in preseason and kind of earlier in the season, Zaven Collins has a lot of run stopping potential. So I do think he should be developed along those lines. And I agree that this is a red shirt. And I actually really appreciate like the person that Jordan Hicks is for handling that situation, because I think the front office really mishandled the entire deal. But he took it well, and he's been seemingly a great guy, and he's dealt with the situation, and he's had some decent play. He's steady. I know he's not the greatest run stopper, but next year, Zaven just needs to be thrown in at middle linebacker.
Yes.
If that is who you absolutely think is the future of that position, then you just got to give him 17 games to do it.
Yep.
And you just sort of have to accept the consequences there at that point. You can't keep Jordan Hicks around forever and just dangle Zaven Collins in the position as well. It's just not good for like a locker room or a team. So I agree, but he has a lot of run stopping potential. That's my favorite thing about Zaven Collins, because he's not going to be a coverage guy.
And underscore says he has Daryl Washington vibes, obviously on the field vibes, not the off the field stuff. But I will say, and you mentioned that he's not necessarily as good in coverage, though. I will tell you, like the scouting reports on him that I read coming out of college is he's surprisingly good at coverage for being a big back. He's not Isaiah Simmons kind of coverage back, but he's better than people think based on his size. So yeah, Aaron, what do you think about the future of Zaven Collins?
Well, I first want to address it as kind of like a PSA to Steve Keim. This is the guy you are most likely going to die on. You told him he was going to play. You told us he was going to play before the dude even got a jersey. So what was one of the things we all said this year that could not happen? It could not have an Isaiah Simmons thing. I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but it has to be said. The other thing is that, Bill Davis, the linebackers coach, who was the linebackers coach last time I checked, where's he been in the development? I remember watching the draft, special the Cardinals put up after they picked him, and they're like, watch him. He goes from, the left side. He comes off as like a 30 tech, which is like, stacked above the left side guard, and comes over to be a positive, 30 tech on the other side. Blew us up this play. Okay, great. So then let's use him. Instead, we don't have, and this is a comment I wanted to get to. Thank you. We don't have that dynamic ability like Micah Parsons has in Dallas, because Dallas actually has defensive linemen. Dan Quinn knows how to put people in places to open up holes. I think it was, Peter Ansa, just right up there. I'm sorry, which one? Yeah, I think he commented it. Yeah, it says getting the 2-gap nose tackle is the most important priority. And that's the thing. Someone else said, can we admit that Jordan Phillips was a bad signing? Zach Allen hasn't done anything either. So, Jordan Phillips is the best of the worst in the worst position group on the field. And cornerback is quickly approaching that. So the D-line has sucked. Once JJ was out, then the run stop got even worse. And, of course, everything else did. So you got to play them just like Simmons. And guess what? They're rookies. They're human. You are going to make mistakes. But if you get someone who has playing time and they're able to get in there and learn, then guess what? The curve starts to go up rather than holding them back and then trying to be like, okay, here you go, and put them into a volcano and expect them to come out alive. It's just not going to end well. So you have to play Zabin and get him some help up front. And then you also got to find a way to get rid of Jordan Hicks, because if you actually play Zabin and Hicks is on the bench, then he kind of becomes like a little Anquan Bolden, starts talking, I want to get out of here. No disrespect to Bolden, but we all know what happened with that. Then get rid of him so that way you say, all right, you are truly the guy. Show us what you can do. And Steve Keim is saying, save me my job.
Yeah. And when Brent Coleman joined the show, I asked him about this a little bit. And I think these are some great points because I brought up not just the struggles of Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons and Brett said it. He's like, let's be honest, Simmons hasn't played up to his draft stats or is talented. He's had some good games and good moments, but he's also been a little bit invisible at points. And I know not everyone, some people hate on PFF, but his PFF grades call Isaiah Simmons PFF grades have been pedestrian this year. Again, he's had some big plays, but in fact, I think he started the season off better than. But I asked Brett about what's up with the linebackers, and I brought up not only is Collins not really doing anything, but hasn't even seen the field, that Simmons struggled last year and is not playing like a stud this year. And when you compare him to someone like Micah Parsons, who as a rookie is like what Simmons was drafted as in the same range that Parsons was, right, and supposed to be that good. But you also look at, like I brought up, Devondre Campbell, who we signed as a free agent from Atlanta, who was a decent player with them, came in here.
Great.
Well, I'll tell you, he was solid for us.
Yeah, he was.
But his PFF grades were like 50 something. He was solid, but not spectacular. I know you don't buy it, but let me finish my point. I know you don't buy it, but let me finish my point. But then he goes on to Green Bay, and he is being outstanding in Green. He's playing like really well in Green Bay, right? And then you look at Jordan Hicks. Jordan Hicks, in terms of his grades and how we're better in Philadelphia than they've been here. So again, you may not buy into PFF, but like not only have our rookie linebackers struggled, but linebackers who've come here as free agents were better before, mediocre here, and better when they left, at least in the case of Campbell. So it comes back to this question. Is there something about the coaching, Billy Davis? And I don't know. And I know one JP, channel member of on my channel, has asked about this a lot. Is it something about that? Is it something that they're doing? So I asked Brett Coleman about it, and he said his opinion is that this defensive system should favor linebackers because they're not being asked to shed blocks. And it comes back, and his take on it, and I agree, and I think you've kind of alluded to this. And you pointed towards this, Aaron, with that comment that you highlight, that you want, that you noted. The problem is the defensive line, right? Those guys in the middle are not eating up the blocks for them. They're not getting penetration. They're not doing what they need to do to let these middle linebackers excel. And so I think that's the biggest need in the upcoming draft is getting a blue chip interior defensive lineman. None of these. And I like Rashard Lawrence. I think Fotu has potential, but they don't. Those guys are guys you want as part of a rotation, and that's fine. You want those as your third and fourth guys in your rotation, but they need a solid blue chip stud interior defensive lineman, a grizzly bear who's going to just throw people around.
One other thing about Devondre Campbell here real quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's having, if you look at, the qualitative aspect of the plays that he's making, it's the same as in Arizona. The only reason why people are going, oh my God, like this guy's so great, Arizona's stupid for letting him go, is that he's playing 19% more of the snaps. He only played 79% of the snaps in Arizona last year, whereas now he's playing 98. When you play a lot more, you're going to get a lot more stats. So I think everybody, just like, Rasul Douglas, let's calm down with that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't think Devondre Campbell is necessarily the greatest linebacker out there. And so it's not that, but like, and again, I know you don't love PFF, but let me read his PFF grade starting from 2016 with the Eagles. And I'll tell you when we get to Cardinal season, and you can guess when we get to Green Bay. 2016, 55.7, 2017, 69.1, 2018, 56.6, 2019, 50.1. Okay, so that's his Falcons career. Right? Arizona Cardinals, 49.0. Green Bay Packers, 82.4. Okay.
I still don't buy it.
I know you don't. I think PFF stuff is not perfect, but still useful. That to me says something. I don't think that if he had those increased snaps with the Cardinals, his play would jump up to 82.4 grade. I get it. We'll agree to disagree, but like even with that point set aside, there is an issue with the linebackers here, right? I think we all agree on that. And do we all agree that the fix for that is fixing the defensive line, or do we think there's something else that needs to be done to fix that?
Tyler, I'll let you get a word in here.
I mean, I think one of the biggest keys to fixing that is, like you said, Joseph, you take the hit of the draft capital and you get a blue chip nose tackle, almost regardless of what it costs, because that's going to go so far to fixing two position groups. If you get the blue chip like Calais Campbell in his prime, like everyone's talking about in the comments, he's a little bit older, but like a prime Calais Campbell type of player at nose tackle, and you fix a D-line and a linebacker position. That's just like Rodney Hudson is going to be the linchpin of the offense. That blue chip nose tackle is going to be the exact same for a defense. You have to have it, especially in a 3-4 like we run. You have to have it.
Well, yeah, and I'll let you jump in. I don't necessarily, and people say nose tackle so much, like you play so much in the nickel that really what it ends up being, instead of being a 3-4, it's often like a 4-2.
Yeah.
But really what you need is you need three interior defensive linemen and you rotate them. I think like you don't the days of the 6'2", 340, guy with huge legs and a big old butt who's like that nose tackle
of the world.
Yeah, you don't see those so much, and those guys who are truly purely that don't stay on the field. What you need are three guys that are built like Lucky Fotu, Rashad Lawrence, and J.J. Watt. Now you need guys who I think you need a blue chipper, but you need guys that are built like that. And two of them are on the field when you're in the nickel. Three of them are on, but you rotate them, so there's not one guy who's only on the field as a true nose when they're in 3-4. They rotate them in, and like they do that now. Even like the closest thing they have to a true nose probably is Corey Peters, but you'll see him at that defensive tackle in that 4-2, right, nickel. So you don't see him only as the true nose. But anyway, Aaron, I want to let you jump in there.
Maybe I lost my train of thought here.
Sorry.
Hold on. No, it's fine. It's fine. It's me and it's not you. But the other thing is, someone up the chat in there said that, Bill Davis has got to go. And correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Bill Davis fired a couple years ago?
Here's what I know, and I'd have to look at it. He was with the Cardinals before.
Right.
And then he's back with them again. So I'll look him up.
As you're doing that, that's just my thing, because I think Bill Davis has been with the team a long time, which is great. I'm all for having success and longevity. However, I feel like he is a product of the early 2000s Cardinals that were so bad that besides Carlos Dansby taken off, I mean, who else have the Cardinals had at a linebacker position? I mean, I'll let everybody else discuss that. So
let me just give you the timeline on Bill Davis and what I think's gone on. And then we'll let Kyler jump into the actual substance of your question. Billy Davis was the linebackers coach for the Arizona Cardinals from 2007 through 2008. Then he was the defensive coordinator. He was promoted to defensive coordinator in 2009, 2010. And then he left. Was at the end of the Ken Whisenhunt time? I'm guessing. I'm trying to remember the
2012
time.
Was it, yeah.
So he left after 2010, and then he rejoined as a linebackers coach in 2019. So what I'm assuming happened there, and if someone knows, they can correct me. But as you recall, when the Cardinals hired Kliff Kingsbury, they kind of put together his coaching staff for him. Keim did, because they're bringing in this guy. And so they put together guys. And I imagine Keim knew Billy Davis from his time before, and Keim probably was the one who brought him back because of familiarity. 9:31. Is that
responding to underscore? He thinks it's 11 o'clock here in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, it's 10:30 where I'm at on the East Coast. But so anyway, that's the timeline. So what do you, more about Billy Davis?
I just, it's time for someone new. I mean, because the only way the Cardinals have really kind of elevated, minus, the exception to the rule year 2008 with Rod Graves and everybody else, was the fact of Bruce Arians coming in here. Then the Cardinals kind of became more modern, and we started to kind of, become a little more of a household name, especially from 2013 to 15. But after that point, once Bruce left, there was no foundation. There was nobody that was taken care of. I mean, Tom Moore was also freaking like 85 years old coaching this team. So, underscore, take a seat. There was no fostered growth. A good organization, good coaches set up their assistants below them to continue to do that. That's why Pittsburgh has only had like 3 head coaches in 60 years or something like that. It's because they developed the assistants. So that way, when it's time to go, they're usually pretty dang successful. Mm-hmm. And, I just think it's time for someone to.
I want to respond to this question, but Kyler, was there anything else you wanted to add to the Billy Davis stuff, or if first?
I think the guy has got Billy Davis covered on that.
More Billy Davis talk. We do more Billy Davis talk than any other Cardinals live stream podcast or anything else.
I think you can
put it on a t-shirt.
Say that.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, put it on a t-shirt. We talk more Billy Davis than anyone.
Although I think it's good to be looking at position coaches like that, because it is a little bit unfair to put everything on Vance Joseph, both when it's a good thing and when it's a bad thing. He's a defensive coordinator, and he's calling out stuff during the game, and he's ultimately responsible for everything. But it's one position group that sort of just had the weird quirks the past 2 years, and you draft a linebacker super high one year, and then you draft another linebacker super high the next year, and you just see a pattern repeating itself in that position group. So it's worth looking at. And now if Kliff Kingsbury is going to continue being the head coach, and like you said, he sort of had a pre-assembled staff for the most part, he needs to be looking elsewhere to actually fill positions with the way he wants to run the team. If he's going to be the guy for the next few years, let him assemble his staff now. Because you're right that Billy Davis is part of this old guard of the Cardinals. And sadly, that's a bad thing, because the Cardinals, for most of franchise history, were not used to being a good winning team. So you need to build a new staff that has that type of winning culture and stuff like that. And Billy Davis just might unfortunately be part of the old Cardinals that we want to move past.
That makes sense. What do you think about the question of firing Kliff and promoting Vance Joseph? to head coach and then another defensive coordinator?
I see this, but I'm going to raise you an alternate.
Okay.
Kind of like a little Shark Tank sort of thing. I say demote Kliff to offensive coordinator. VJ comes up, keep Sean Kugler, fire Bill Davis. And then I think you let Vance run the defense because, look, Vance has gotten this defense from like dead last to 18th or like to 16th. Then last year, it was at least 4th in the league in sacks. Ray Horton, now that's scraping the barrel right there.
Yeah. Well, remember, there were people who wanted him to be the head coach.
I love the idea.
Yeah. When was it when Wisenhunt was fired, and some people wanted him because he was our defensive coordinator, right?
Well, right, because the Cardinals, rush defense was only giving up like 83 yards a game. Like it was phenomenal. It was 2012 of all years that, that was the best spot of the team, and they had a 5-11 record, I think. I don't think Kliff has earned another season. I don't, because 3rd year in a row, he's collapsed like a house of cards, no pun intended, down the stretch, and he has no guts to scream at his players. Yes, and I know, and I've coached football a little bit, with the limited sample size I have. There are some times you just have to get this close to someone to get it in and fire them up, because otherwise no one's going to do it. Attitude is infectious on a sideline, and no matter who your leaders are, if they are not consistently up there, everybody goes down. So that's my fix on that.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the fire Kliff, so I'm not yet in the fire Kliff place. I want to see how the season plays out, because there's still 2 games in a playoff left. If they get blown out the next 2 games, and they get blown out in the playoffs, and they do all that with a healthy Rodney Hudson and let's say a healthy James Conner in a couple of games and a healthy Kyler Murray, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong if you want to fire Kliff. But if they come out and they're competitive and maybe even beat the Cowboys, and if they beat Seattle and they make it maybe to the second round of the playoffs or even have a good showing in the playoffs, I also look at it like Kliff at the same time has had 3 years where he's improved this team. 3 years. I get that the way it's ended has left a bad taste in all of our mouths, right? Because like if you I'll come back to you, I'm done. There's one other point I want to make with this, but and I've said this before. If you said to all of us 3 years ago when they hired Kliff, you said, "Here's what's going to happen. First year you're going to win 5 games. Second year you're going to win 8 games. Third year you're going to win 10, 11 games, make the playoffs. Will you take that?" We would all have signed up for it. The way it happened with the late season slides has made us really affected how we feel about it. And I totally get the point that these late season collapses have happened too often, to that they've happened so often, they are a thing we need to be worried about. But let me get to the thing about Vance Joseph. I like Vance Joseph a lot as a defensive coordinator, but I think there might be a little bit of the Peter principle going on. You familiar with that? The Peter principle that sometimes a person gets promoted up to the point of incompetency, where like person gets promoted. Think about in a company, a guy gets promoted to middle management, does a really good job, but then they get promoted to the next job and they're not up to the task for that. They were really good in their last job. That's why they got promoted, but then they get promoted into a position where they don't have the competency level for. Mm-hmm. That happens a lot with good coordinators, right? And there's a bunch of them throughout the history of the league. What was the guy who he was a head coach? He was an offensive coordinator for Dallas. He was a head coach in Washington, but he wasn't a good head coach. I forget his name, but if you all remember, he was a classic example of this. Vance Joseph.
The guy from the Saints?
Maybe he's and if you remember, or if I remember, I'll tell you. But anyway, the point being, I'm not saying Vance Joseph won't be a good head coach ever. I don't know that, but he wasn't good with Denver. He's been a good coordinator, but I wonder if he's one of those guys whose ceiling is a really good coordinator, bad head coach. So here's what I would say: if the Cardinals fire Kliff, what I want them to do is go after a good offensive coordinator in the NFL, like a Brian Dable or someone like that. I don't think he got a head coaching job this year, did he?
No, he's still in Buffalo, and his run game sucks. I don't want Dable.
Well, still, but his pass game is pretty good. But whether it's him or someone else, right? Though, but that's what I want. I want that offensive coordinator who's proven that they're ready for a chance and they're not a retread. That's what I want if we don't have Kliff. So, Aaron, you wanted to respond to something. I was monologuing like 7 minutes ago. You wanted to jump in there, but go ahead and jump in.
Well, I mean, sometimes people need a second chance, and I think that's the thing that Vance Joseph needs, because remember, after when Vance took over in Denver, which I'm pretty sure was 2017, Denver was a dumpster fire. Peyton Manning had left. All he had was Von Miller there. I mean, that was Brock Osweiler and whoever else it was running around up in there. So I think he could do it. I know everyone's heard of or seen the meme, like it was a great day at practice or a great week of practice times a million. But I mean, I think it would be great. I mean, because in this division, you still have to have like a top tier defense, and the Cardinals started out with one, but it's declined. So I think Vance could deliver that.
Just real quick, the coach I was thinking of is Norv Turner. That's the guy who's perennially a great coordinator and not a great NFL head coach, right? That's the poster child for the Peter principle in NFL head coaches. Sorry. So, okay.
I'm just looking at the comments too.
Yeah, I want to say hey to Calvin, who just jumped in here. Really great support of the channel. In fact, I'm going to use this while you're looking at comments. Let's see, rough couple of weeks. Both coaches are being questioned now. All the while the Cardinals are in the playoffs. Leaders need to learn to. And listen, I like what Calvin's saying at the end here. I think people sometimes forget that coaches, especially younger coaches, develop just like players develop. Maybe not exactly the same way, but like Kliff Kingsbury has a lot of potential in terms of what he does, but there's some things he needs to learn. And this is maybe part of the reason why I'm not as quick to want to bail on him, because he's really good in certain things. He's managed to take this team to improve every year. He's got to get some stuff straight with the play calling. He's got to get some stuff straight with the player discipline. Some people are saying there's some things he needs to work on, but people can grow. And the guy, like, no one's going to outwork him, right? He works hard. He's smart. I'm going to bet on a guy who's working hard and smart, who showed some capability to get better. So that's kind of my take. But what I also want to do real quick, while we're in, I want to acknowledge the folks that are channel members, just to real quick thank them. I try to do this every stream. So the folks that are channel members, want to thank them for their support. Yes, really appreciate that. And like I mentioned on a previous live stream, your support, the channel members, the super chats, and the ad revenue bought this microphone. You all have helped me buy a microphone that's just trying to make. Brett Coleman told me after the show, I picked his brain. He said, try to make everything you do 1% better. So this is, you all have helped me make my audio 1%. Well, it's probably more than 1% better. So thank you, channel members. Thank you, folks who support. Really appreciate that. So I want to acknowledge that. But was there anything that y'all see in the chats? I want to, let's see. Oh, let me get this question.
No, absolutely not.
Mm.
That is just no.
Yeah, I'm going to say no, and it's not even necessarily about his qualifications as a coach. I've said this a lot of times. He is sneakily one of the oldest coaches in the NFL, and it's not that I think he can't do the job. I just think he might be ready to retire.
He is so out of touch. He will literally get Russell Wilson to leave Seattle, the guy who brought them in their only Super Bowl. So
yeah. So I'm gonna. For me, it's in fact no for multiple reasons. I think you want to. I think if you're replacing Kliff, you want another guy who's early in his career, not late in his career. But I'm not ready to bail on Kliff yet. But again, I get why people don't want to. Okay, let's see. If we keep Kliff, can he hire an OC to call? I get this question a lot and comment a lot. So I definitely want to talk about this. Can we get him an OC to call plays, let him choke on his pride for now and manage the team? What do you guys think about that? Either one of you want to jump in with that?
I go back and forth on that all the time too, because like there are certain parts of Kliff that I love as a coach, and there are certain parts that I hate. And I don't know that all of the parts that I hate could really be taken over by an offensive coordinator. I don't know if that like makes a lot of sense, but they're just the aspects of his game that don't work. And I'm not really sure that just hiring another coach solves that problem. And I had a fairly good popular tweet in anger about Kliff, that if we go on a 5-game slide, like the front office has to think about letting him go. That's a horrible way to end a historic season, what should have been a historic season for the franchise. But again, like you had said, if you had told me Kliff would go 3, 5, 10, or 11 playoffs, then most people would make that deal and allow him to continue on his journey of growth as an NFL head coach. So I think he's gotten better every season. There are still things that are frustrating that pop up that remind us of his first year, but is he objectively getting better as a coach? Yeah, he is. We won 10, probably at least 11 games by the end of the season. I mean, that's pretty objective. So I don't think just hiring an offensive coordinator is what's going to help Kliff. I think more what's going to help the trajectory of the team is kind of like our giant excursion into Billy Davis is tweaking position stuff, because they have direct contact with players. They have a huge impact on the success of a team, even though we only talk about coordinators and head coaches. So there are things to do within the ranks of the coaching staff, but I don't think just getting an OC is going to solve it. And I don't think that Vance Joseph as head coach is really a move that we would want to make. And I agree with you, Joseph, on that with Vance Joseph. He is a capable defensive coordinator when he has the personnel that he wants to run what he wants to run. And he's proven that enough this season. But I can't see him being a successful head coach. And I don't – it's kind of an unfair comparison because I don't want to say that Todd Bowles can't be a good head coach. But look at what a fantastic defensive coordinator he can be. And he's been in multiple places. But he had a failed head coaching gig.
Though with the Jets, so I give him a pass on that. But
everyone should get a pass for going to the Jets.
Right.
You're thinking of Todd Bowles. Vance Joseph wasn't with the Jets as a head coach.
No, I'm thinking of Todd Bowles, yeah.
Yeah, Todd Bowles.
That's what we're talking about.
He was not Todd Bowles. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's right. There was a Todd Bowles.
My bad.
And another person that I've seen pop up in the chat and people talk about all the time, Eric Bieniemy. Mm-hmm. Head coach Eric Bieniemy, I don't know how much of his success is tied to who he is or to the specific circumstances of the Chiefs franchise right now under Andy Reid. I wouldn't want to take a chance on Eric Bieniemy as a head coach for the Cardinals. So more than likely Kliff is going to get that 4th year, right? So it's dealing with what we can within the inner coaching trees that can actually help the team moving into the future.
Aaron, what do you think about an OC?
It's like go west. It's the king of wishful thinking. It's never going to happen. I mean, because he is the offensive guru, and I said this on my stream earlier this week. Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals makes a great point. If Kliff's offense isn't the main thing of this team, then what is he doing here? So if he can't do it as a head coach, I can see where people would want to give him an extension, but for me, it's time to move on because you're going to make the playoffs, but if this is the deal with the devil where you collapse down the stretch, we're just a Southwestern version of the Green Bay Packers without a Super Bowl. So, I mean, what's really being accomplished here?
Yeah, I probably want to see one more year. I know people say, well, how many years do you need to see? But
that's the max I would give him. Yeah.
If next year they don't improve, then if they don't make the playoffs for sure next year, then I'd be like, okay, I'd probably be like, yeah, maybe we move on. But as far as the offensive coordinator, and some people talk about when you hire Kliff Kingsbury, you're hiring him because of what he brings on offense, right? As a play designer and his play. In fact, again, when I keep referring back to the Brett Coleman stream that I did. I asked him about Kliff, and his take on Kliff was, in terms of play design, he's top tier. Kliff, from what he's seen in film, loves what Brett loves what Kliff does in terms of designing plays, but it seems like the sequencing, the calling of the plays, which plays are called when, that's the biggest problem. So the play design is good. The play calling is a problem. So
yeah,
an offensive coordinator kind of by definition is the guy who comes in and you are running his offense. So I don't think they need an offensive coordinator because Kliff is the play designer. But what I do think would be beneficial is if you had some sort of offensive assistant, maybe called a offensive quality control coach, offensive assistant, whose job is nothing more than to help Kliff with sequencing. During games saying, hey, I think we should these are the plays you should consider here. Or maybe even what they're doing is maybe Kliff designs the plays, maybe Kliff designs the game plans, but maybe that person picks the plays. Though it sounds like Kliff really wants to call the plays, but someone, whatever it is, whether it's in the prep, they're helping him talking through scenarios and which plays to call, whatever it is they're doing, their job is to help him get better at the sequencing. That's what I think they should do. But you're not. I don't think you're going to have that person being a true offensive coordinator, because that means you're bringing someone in to install their offense. At least my understanding of the way that works. So I don't think that's what you need, but I'm all for getting him help to improve in the play calling.
This is how I kind of see Kliff. He's been given an assignment. Each game's an assignment, and it's your standard school essay. And he has a great outline. He has all the information he needs for a wonderful essay. And Kliff's problem is that he sometimes just messes up the order of where his body paragraphs need to be. So that by the time you get to the conclusion, you kind of don't know what's happening anymore. And he just needs help with ordering his offensive thoughts into a full game. Because you're right on play design and stuff like that. He has a lot of creativity. He's had some great play design, but sometimes it's inappropriate for the situation that he's in. It's like trying to run plays that work between the 20s and the red zone, stuff like that. So sometimes he's confusing some body paragraphs with some conclusion paragraphs. And someone on an offensive coaching staff to help him order the narrative or the sequencing of the offense would go a long way.
Yeah, I just want to respond to Peter. And he's saying, this is where OC comes to help with the sequence. And maybe this is a little bit semantics, but to me, an offensive coordinator is what I was describing before. The person comes in and runs their offense. It doesn't matter what you call the position, I guess, the coaching spot. But what they don't need the true offensive coordinator who is installing their offense. What they need is a guy who is an assistant to help Kliff.
Quality control.
Right, offensive quality control. So it kind of doesn't matter what you call it, but what matters is what they're doing. But Kliff probably needs to be designing the plays, installing the game plans, and probably still calling the calls, calling the plays, but with help. If you want to call that person offensive coordinator, that's fine. I would call him offensive quality control coach. But yeah, but this Kliff sequencing 5 wide receiver plays in 1st and 10, right? And I like the analogy you're using because obviously you just got done doing a very major, and congratulations on your thesis. So really major accomplishment, Kyler. But we're both in academia, so we kind of get that. You've got your body paragraphs that are kind of the moving the narrative, but you got to conclude it. You got to close. You got to seal the deal with that concluding paragraph. That ties everything together, and that's the analogy for that red zone scoring play, much like what you talked about earlier in the stream, that 90-yard drive that they didn't close it, right? So yeah, 100%. And a goal line it's audible. Yeah, I think he's probably kind of agreeing with what we're saying. We need a game plan advisor with Kliff, not necessarily an OC. Yeah, so yeah. Let's see. We got a question. What is a team's offense and defensive identity 3 years into the system? I think that's a really good question. Anyone want to jump in and take that first?
This is such a tough question, but at the same time, we all know the answer. It's just offense is like, instead of having a tortoise in the hare, you always opt in for the hare, and this offense never lasts through the end of the season, especially last year where it was, one of the most slow and most painful football deaths you could ever imagine. At least, thank God for Minnesota losing, because otherwise we probably would have had it this year. Defensively, I think it's find small, fast guys who, we're going to try to, put in and not give our corners any help, with, you got Buddha back there, but I mean, I don't know. It's a great question, but I also think that's just kind of also, a rhetorical question, or whatever the fancy term is, just saying like, it's just code word for collapse.
It's a great question that makes me question everything.
That's what a good question does, doesn't it?
That's true. That's true.
On many levels, yeah.
I mean, I think part of that, and I don't want to make excuses or anything, but part of that is each year has been such different circumstances that there hasn't been an identity that has grown during the Kliff Kingsbury era. It's not an easily identifiable, this is an Andy Reid team. I don't know. That's great, because it is not the air raid offense that the media talked about when we hired Kliff Kingsbury. It's just not what it is anymore. We run more 4 or 5 wide receiver sets than any other team, but that's not like the offensive identity, I don't think. But it's a completely different offense than last year. So how do you really answer that? Like, it was a great running offense last year, and now we ignore the run.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Sorry. And I think we've gone almost 2 hours, so we're probably just going to go about another guys. Oh, sorry. I think we're going to go another 5 minutes, so we'll talk about this and maybe 1 or 2 more questions, since we've gone on nearly 2 hours. So yeah, this is tough. I mean,
Donovan Gilbert had a great response. And
yeah, I let's see. Well, I put that up there. That response. Yeah,
it is.
Nice job, sir. Nice job.
And we got air run spread with run game principles, defensive mixture through soft zone, which does not work. Okay, there you go. Aries. I mean, he's got the offense is it's a variation of the air raid spread, right? But he's adapted it. He's playing the tight end more, than you would think of, I guess, with a traditional air raid. So he's mixing it up a little bit, but yeah, I mean, their offensive identity. That's a good. I mean, you could take the cynical, like, get a 3rd and 17 because of a sack and a penalty, and then heave it up there and hope you make a big play. But their offensive identity is more of a pass first. Even though they do run the ball a bit, it feels like it's more of a pass first. They've seen, in fact, I think a lot of their rushing yards have been situational, like goal line situations and late in the game.
That's really it.
So I feel like it's a pass first offense that runs when the situation's right. And it is an offense that goes for the big play a lot because think about how many times you've seen them on 3rd and 4th downs go for deep shots, and they've worked sometimes, right? But they are not a conservative offense, right? It's an aggressive offense. And they do have the spread principles where they use a lot of screen passes and jet sweeps and occasional wildcats to try to spread the defense out kind of across the field, so that they can open up space. So that to me is the best I can describe their offense. Their defense, if they play a lot of nickel, even though they're a 3-4, so many of their snaps are in those 4-2 looks with a corner, and sometimes they'll bring one of those safeties in to help with the run. I do think though they've been a bend but don't break defense because they've been good again on 3rd down and 4th downs until recently, and they've had one of the better defense in the league in terms of yards and points allowed. But I don't know. That's my take on that. Before we wrap up, let me give you both a chance to kind of let everyone know who you are, where they can find you. I've got your links in the description, but Aaron, real quick, just let everyone know where to find you, and then Kyler, let everyone know where to find you.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is, right on my display name. I also, Kyler and I are part of the Cardinals Conversation Core podcast. That's where I do more of my Cardinals coverage. I will talk about a little bit of it on my own personal account. But I try to keep that blended with, with my actual career field. So, at Coach AVB is where you can find me, and at Cardinals Cores on Twitter.
Yep. Like Aaron said, you can find us on Twitter at Cardinals Core and on YouTube, Cardinals Conversation Core. You can find me on Twitter, like you can see on my display name, at AZCard_birdseye. I'm pretty active. I tend to tweet during the games too. So I try to put some good and bad takes out there and see what you guys like. So I hope you guys will follow me and Aaron, and we'd like to thank Joseph for having us on, because it's always fun to talk to you.
It's a big honor. And the other thing is, I forgot, if you are interested in reading any of the stuff I write on raisingzona.com, fan-sided site, I am there as well.
Awesome. We'll just take maybe 1 or 2 more comments, and then we'll call it. I want to hit a few of the comments that are in here. Apologies again, I can't get everything. Let's see. Don't know if you answered this question, but y'all think about Isaiah Simmons thus far. I'll summarize my thoughts real quick. I think he's had moments, but he hasn't lived up to his draft status. But I don't think that's all on him. I think they haven't given him the defensive lineman to let him do what he needs. You guys want to add anything to that?
I'm pretty much going to agree with you on that. We went into this heavy. He needs more people in front of him. He needs a better linebackers coach, and just better scheme, really.
Yeah. This is why I was saying Kliff needs to know. See offensive coordinator advisor help Kliff sequence his play design. Let him know the importance of run game, especially. Yeah, we've all talked about it, right?
Yeah.
Like in all the games they've been losing lately, like run the ball more and run it earlier, right? Let me real quick. Thank you for reminding me of this, Mark. I have a Discord. There's like 80 something folks in there now. It's a really great group of Cardinals fans. And during the games, there's the game day chat where there's usually about 15 or 20 of us, and they're just kind of chatting. The link is below. Consider joining the Discord. People post news in there all the time. Got a couple of folks who are members of the channel members, like Red Sea and John Podward Didios, that are always posting information in there. And so it's a good place to kind of stay connected. So consider joining that. Let's see. And then Mark's also thank you for doing it. It was definitely fun. Aaron, wish I would have seen you in the Chicago game. I was there. Good insight, Kyler. Great takes. Listen, I really appreciate you guys. I always have fun talking, Arizona Cardinals with you guys and folks in the chat. Thank you all for being here. This was a lot of fun. It was nice to just kind of get everything out that we've been, kind of empty the notebook, so to speak, and kind of get everything off our chest. I hope this group therapy session was helpful and that you may not feel better about where the Cardinals are, but maybe you are better able to kind of cope with it. And the poll about the levels of grief or the stages of grief, let me just tell you, there were 89 votes. 18% said denial. 38% are dealing it with anger. 11% with bargaining, and 33% with acceptance. So I'm going to end the poll.
Okay.
And so a lot of anger, some acceptance. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to end the stream. Thank you guys all for being here. It's been a lot of fun. And we'll do this again. See y'all later.